Hi guys, welcome back for episode 5 of Mocked. I'm so excited you're here and I'm really happy to be doing this. Let's talk. I said I was gonna post every single Monday when I first started this, and we are almost 3 weeks in now, if not more than that or less than that, I don't really know. And I've missed a Monday. When I first started this, I really didn't know how much work it was going to be. I thoroughly enjoy doing this, and I'm more than willing to put in that work, but boy, did I underestimate how time consuming this would be. And when I realized how time consuming and how much work this really is, I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted the podcast to be perfect. I wanted the editing to be perfect. I wanted the script writing and the production to be just perfect. And this past week, actually, I really haven't been excited to film. And that's not like me. Filming is probably my favorite part of doing this. And I wasn't excited to film. I had no motivation, no inspiration. And I put it off until it was Monday and nothing was out. I was really disappointed in myself because I wanted this podcast to be perfect. And after some self-reflection, reevaluation, I realized I am probably the furthest thing from perfect, so why would this be perfect? And although that sounds almost self-deprecating, I mean that in the best way. I have all these imperfections that I'm constantly trying to outgrow and work on. Growing up, I had 2 awesome parents. They were separated, as we've discussed previously. All I wanted to do growing up was make them proud. All I wanted to do was make my parents happy and have them be proud of my accomplishments. And I wanted to put a smile on their faces when they saw me achieving something. I wanted them to talk about me to their friends and other families. And I think that's kind of where I got this idea of striving for perfection within myself, because it was never like that in school. I never really strived to be the best academically, but when it comes to my appearance and the projects that I do, including this podcast, I want to be the best. I want to be good at it right away. And that was kind of what I was getting at the beginning of this episode, saying how when I started this, I didn't know how much work it was going to be. I underestimated it, and I wanted to be perfect at it, good at it right away. That's just not how this works. I've never ran a podcast before, so. But yeah, growing up wanted to be the best at everything that I did, whether that was soccer or baseball or softball or all the extracurriculars that I did. I wanted to strive for perfection. This later in my life carried on into my theater performances. Not to toot my own horn, but I was good at what I did, and I just wanted to be the best. And I would act at these community theaters and my school plays, and I loved it. It was something I had finally found that seemed to really impressed my parents because I was good at it. And I eventually burned myself out. I burned myself out. I was sometimes doing 2 shows at a time, which, if you know anything about theater, that is almost unheard of. Not really, but it's just really difficult to do because rehearsals are really inconsistent at times. You could be called in for one rehearsal and not the next. So doing 2 shows at once can be a handful. And eventually I just got to a point where I didn't want to do it anymore. I was so stressed and burnt out from wanting to be the best that I just stopped doing it altogether. And honestly, I wish I had kept going. I was good at what I did. I loved theater. I loved being on stage and putting on a show. And it just didn't work out. I worked a little bit too hard because I wanted to be this public figure and this overachiever. I just wanted to be the best. And that just isn't the case sometimes. And That's okay. Wanting to be the best later carried on into other aspects of my life, including work and hobbies, which it's almost a blessing and a curse, because with work, I wanted to be the best right away. I wanted to be amazing at what I did right then and there. And when I would realize that that is just not the case, I would quit. I would leave the job. And then in my hobbies, I would pick things up, reading, painting, drawing, stuff like that. And once I realized I wasn't good at it right away, I put it down. So I've experienced so many things within my life, but following through on projects is not one of my strong suits. And it's because my perfectionism would get to an extreme level to where I didn't want to do it at all, because I realized I would never be perfect at it. And this later led into me honestly dropping the perfectionist act, right? I didn't really care at all if I was perfect. And that eventually led to my downfall of being inconsistent with my meds or making reckless decisions, impulsive decisions, because I did not care how people viewed me. I did not care about opinions or what people were saying about me, which I think is awesome. Like I didn't care. But I should have listened to the things people were saying about me at the time, because I was spiraling into mania. And I made a lot of stupid decisions that I still I'm trying to forgive myself for today. I have realized on this journey of mine that recovery and growth is not perfect. Like we have discussed within prior episodes, this past year was really, really hard for me. It was really, really hard. And something that I struggle with today about dealing with no longer caring about being perfect is that I have to slowly start to forgive myself for what happened when I was imperfect. And that is where my perfectionism comes back into play. I want to be good right away. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to process it. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to be straight, solid right away, right? And the act of forgiving yourself for past mistakes, that's all right. Now we're getting uncomfortable. That's hard. My teenage years especially, I am still very much struggling to forgive myself for. I mean, I put my parents through hell. I was undiagnosed. I was a teenager with a big attitude. I was a far from ordinary child to raise. I think I've said that on this podcast before, verbatim. And my teenagers were just really hard. And learning to have to forgive myself for what I did so that I can move on. Like there's a part of me that doesn't want to forgive myself for those years. But I know that if I don't, I won't be able to move on with my life and eventually find my peace. I think that there is such beauty in forgiving yourself for prior mistakes, and that comes with accountability and resilience and admitting when you're wrong. I think there's something so beautiful about that, because you're putting your pride aside, you're letting your ego down, you're becoming vulnerable and admitting your faults. That is incredibly difficult to do. So yeah, I mean, forgiving myself for my teenage years, it has been far from easy, but I need to do so in order to move on with my life. And I'm still trying to do that, but it's hard sometimes, And I've learned over the years that growth does not equal perfection or flawlessness or anything of the sort. It does not equal that. One thing that I didn't expect when I got out of treatment was that my perfectionism had almost worsened, but not... It's so complicated to explain. It hadn't worsened for the worse. I wanted to be flawless within my recovery. I wanted to never mess up. I wanted to be this perfect human being. Like there's no other way to put it. And that just doesn't exist. None of us are perfect. If perfection existed, you wouldn't be human. But growth, I think, is all about messing up and admitting when you're wrong and going through mistakes and learning when something's not right. I think it's so important to learn from what you've been through, learn from your mistakes, and take what you learned and carry it with you through life. I mean, I am someone that has to fall on their face 10 times to understand that there's a curb there. I have to take a step, like I have to face plant multiple times, get hurt multiple times in order to learn something. But that doesn't mean I'm not growing each time. It doesn't mean you're not taking something from that experience each time. I don't want people to think that just because if you're like me and it takes you a couple times to figure it out, you're gonna be okay. It's so cliche, but it really is true. You will be okay. Because something people tell me all the time, one of my best qualities is how resilient I am. I get pushed down, I get right up. And quite honestly, after a while, I got kind of sick of hearing that. I'm tired. Sometimes you don't want to get back up. And that's okay. It's okay to sometimes want to just lay there in misery, lay there for 2 minutes and get up and then learn. What did you learn from this experience? Ask yourself that. What can I take from this and not do again next time? That is growth. Growth is learning and understanding and processing. That is growth, not perfection or flawlessness or whatever the hell you want to call perfection. So yeah, I mean, that kind of leads me to where I'm at now. I understand that recovery is not linear. I'm going to say that again. I understand that recovery is not linear. You are allowed to mess up. And you are allowed to fuck up. And you are allowed to make mistakes. It is what you do after the fact that truly, truly defines who you are. I solely believe that learning from your mistakes can shape you into who you are meant to be, because you're learning what not to do again. You're learning what you don't like. You're learning new experiences. Growth is not linear, and I still struggle with that. I mean, I will get into an argument with my mom every now and then, and the guilt that I feel is heavy. It could be about the smallest thing, right? Like the smallest thing. And because I have a history of having a hard time with emotional regulation, it can be really, really, really hard when I do show frustration or anger or sadness, like really extreme emotions. It can be hard after the fact because I almost feel guilty for feeling that to that level, Does that make sense? But one thing I have learned about now having self-compassion, because I did not have any a year ago today. I did not have any self-compassion. But something I've learned through this journey of mine is something really cool about self-compassion is when you eventually get to that point of loving yourself, you get to try new things. So there was a point where I hated myself because I wasn't perfect. And I would never try new things. I would never cut my hair a different way or do my makeup a certain way or dress a different way. I would always go with what I thought would be perceived as perfect. So I never tried anything new. And now I have a podcast. I'm living in Florida and I have bleached eyebrows. Something's changed, I have absolutely developed self-compassion for myself, and I get to try new things and grant myself new experiences because I know that if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world, believe it or not. Life is so much bigger than mistakes and problems that occur and lessons that you learn. It's so much bigger than that. And I just wish people were more gentle with themselves. Just because you make mistakes doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. Humans are meant and programmed to try again. Figure things out. Turn it a different way, maybe it'll fit. And I just wish we looked at mistakes and problems and puzzles as ways to learn. I wish we looked at it as not necessarily a problem, but an opportunity to see things differently. I think in episode 2, if I'm right, I said at the end to be authentically you. Unapologetically, authentically you. And that's where I'm at now as well. Be you. And if you mess up, who cares? Learn and grow from it. That is what matters. That is what makes you you. What you do with the mistakes that you encounter, what you take from it, how you grow from it. That is what defines you as a person. So with all of that being said, I'm so grateful you are here. I am ecstatic to be doing this. I will see you next week for episode 5. Bye.